I cannot believe he just said this, as GM Kyle Dubas has officially spoken out on the lackluster season that was for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and some of the comments he made as it pertains to some of the star players on this team will have Pens fans absolutely fired up. And honestly, some of these comments are shocking. We're going to break them all down in this episode of Penguins Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you who watch these videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on with your Pittsburgh Penguins or the Pittsburgh Penguins in general, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It is free and you get to stay up to date with everything that's happening with this team. And let me tell you, there's going to be a lot of updates as we head into the offseason and into the draft. Kyle Dubas spoke out today at his end of season media availability, and he has some plans for the future. We're going to break those down, and some of the comments he made as it pertains to one player in particular, we'll dive into that right now. And it's pretty shocking. And he went on to say that, somebody asked him about Erik Karlsson. And he elaborated a little bit more than this, but Kyle Dubas on Erik Karlsson, he went on to say his actions have to match his ambitions. And then Dan goes on to say, ouch. And I mean, listen, Erik Karlsson talks like, he wants to put up so many points, and he said he wants to get back to the player that he was in Ottawa. The fact of the matter is he's getting older. He's, he had that injury that he sustained in San Jose, and he has not been the same player since. And Kyle Dubas did, trade for him, and I feel like with this quote, he is challenging Erik Karlsson a little bit to, raise his level next season. He hasn't been that great. I mean, as a Pittsburgh Penguin, he should be a lot better. And I mean, we could be talking about should be and could be's all day, right, till we're blue in the face. But the fact of the matter is, he talks a lot about his ambitions, but his play on the ice isn't matching it. We can take a look at his stats this season. And this season, in 82 games, he had 53 points. And I mean, to put it in perspective, just a couple seasons ago on the San Jose Sharks, he had he had over 100 points, right? And that's just a few seasons removed. I know he's getting a little bit older, but I mean, not a great season for Erik Karlsson, at least offensively. And we know that he isn't the best player defensively either. And I mean, a tough plus minus on the season, on the year. He does play a lot of minutes. He does log a lot of minutes, so that is something to keep in mind as well. I'm always impressed with the guys that can log, an average of 24 to 25 minutes a night. That is not easy to do, especially on teams that aren't good. So there is that. But Kyle Dubas with a shot to Erik Karlsson, essentially challenging him coming into next season. I do kind of like it now. So let me know what you think in the comments about this comment towards Erik Karlsson. I thought it was pretty interesting. And again, I think it's more of a challenge to the player that, hey, come in next season and let's have a better season here. And we'll see if Erik Karlsson can answer the bell. Now, some other stuff I wanted to get into from the media availability is another quote from Kyle Dubas. And he opened it up with this. He said, "I don't equate with just getting into the playoffs as being a legit contender. When I say as urgently as possible, I don't want to put a timeline on it. We just have to stick to a very concise plan and then execute our butts off." Now, even when Kyle Dubas was in Toronto, he was very process oriented. So this is, the same thing to me, very process oriented. And I think that he's saying, he doesn't want to just squeeze into the playoffs. He wants to build this team into a contender. And he's not seeing that with the group right now. And he doesn't equate that to, again, just sneaking into the playoffs like maybe they could have this year if everything went right, or even last year, right? He doesn't see it that way. He wants to build a contender, and he wants to stick to a plan that they have and, continue to execute on that. I think that can be dangerous. And like I said, when he was in Toronto, same thing happened. He was very reluctant to change at times. Kyle Dubas was, in terms of, things aren't working. Okay, let's try it one more time. All right, let's try it one more time. Okay, let's try it one more time. We saw it in Toronto, right? So I'm hoping that that doesn't happen to the Pittsburgh Penguins in that way, because again, you have to make adjustments on the fly sometimes. So I do think being process oriented can be good at times, but hopefully he makes adjustments when needed with some of the plan that he has going forward here. And again, this is the quote from Kelsey from this morning. And then when asked if Jari and Ned will be back next season, Kyle Dubas mentioned that they're under contract and that he'd expect so. That doesn't mean that they will be back. It doesn't mean that he won't explore a trade for either of them. And I had a previous video a couple weeks ago about how highly I think of Alex Nedeljkovic and of course Tristan Jarry, and that he might be an option to be moved. Again, it's going to be hard to do that, but he could be an option. to be moved. We're going to have to keep tabs on that through the summer. Now, some other updates in terms of some of the other players and some of the younger players. Kyle Dubas said that he expects Jack St. Ivany, Owen Pickering, who I thought had a great season this year as well, and a couple other prospects and forwards that you've already seen, what the Pittsburgh Penguins like, Ville Kuvanen, who, by the way, is making the AHL look like a joke right now. I saw some highlights from the other night. This guy is going to be a good player at the NHL level. He is literally toying around with other teams in the AHL right now. It's been nice to see him kind of slice and dice through the AHL because, boy, this guy is ready for the NHL, and I'm excited to see what he can do next year. Rutger McGroarty as well. We know what he can do, and it looks like he might actually return if the Wilkes-Barre Stratton Penguins go deep in the playoffs this season and can join them. So I think that's going to be very exciting to keep an eye on. And Ponomarov as well to push for roster spots in training camp. So he expects all three of them to actually push to make the opening night roster. And honestly, I could see two of them for sure. I mean, they finished the year with the team. I could see Kuvanen for sure and McGroarty making this team out of training camp next year. Is it going to be on the top line? I don't know. I think they have plans, and we're going to get to it later in the video in a bit, to rebuild this team a little bit out of free agency. But I think they're going to make the roster. And Kyle Dubas also mentioned that Matt Grzelcyk managed to get back on track and that they will have conversations with him regarding whether or not they can meet each other's needs. Now, if you look at Matt Grzelcyk this season, what he was able to do for the Pittsburgh Penguins, he had 40 points in 82 games. He was about roughly a half a point a game player. I think that's good output for this player. I think that he could probably stay on the team. I don't know if you're going to find that production from the AHL or one of your, prospects on defense just yet. So I do wonder if you take a look at extending him. He's only 31, so I feel like he's going to want something somewhat long-term. So that's something you have to consider as well. But I do have a hard time believing you're going to find that output from the AHL right now. I think you continue to develop what you have in the system through the AHL, and then eventually you will be able to replace that production. But for the time being, I wonder what a contract for Matt Grzelcyk looks like. So, or not a contract, just the fit in this team, I should say. How he fits kind of going forward. So obviously those are going to be discussions this summer, and I'm excited to see what comes out of that because I thought Matt Grzelcyk honestly had a pretty good season this year. Half a point a game output, so not bad. Now, when asked, Kyle Dubas said, and Kelsey asked him, about the rise in cap, and it's going to go up significantly, not just this summer, but every summer after this, almost $10 million every single summer after this offseason, and how it could affect roster building. He went on to say, they're most likely to spend in the trade market or the RFA trade and sign market. Mentioned that offer sheets will be difficult with teams being more capable of matching. So I thought that was some interesting insight into what they are going to do. And he said, again, sharing the same sentiment. And the full quote on this was, I think that with the cap, the areas that you probably would see us spend more would be by acquisition, by trade, and then signing players that other teams might not be able to fit. I think the effect in free agency is probably going to be somewhat of a spike in salary, and so you'll dry up the cap space rather quickly. And those players are mostly in their late 20s to early 30s category, because we know that obviously they're coming off of either their first contract or maybe a second contract, and they're in their early 30s. But so it could be two things. Number one, I think it's going to allow us to maybe trade for players, and then he went on to say that he's going to continue to look for the right fits in free agency. So not too much insight, but I do think they're going to be heavily involved in free agency and kind of try and build the team out, which kind of plays into what he was saying about some of these guys like Kuvanen and McGroarty, expecting them to challenge for roster spots, but we don't know who's coming in the door via free agency this summer as well. So it's going to be interesting to watch, and I hope they don't sign too many long-term contracts or any guys that are really locked up, because you got a lot of youth coming, and you got those guys like Malkin, Crosby still signed, so you have to keep that in mind, and Erik Karlsson as well. And we don't know exactly what's going to happen with Kris Letang either, so assuming he will be back, but you never know with that stuff as well. So going to be a very interesting offseason, and we're going to keep you updated here on Penguins Digest with everything that's happening with the Pittsburgh Penguins as we move towards the draft, free agency. There's going to be a lot to talk about. There's another update. I'm going to do another video on Sidney Crosby. His offseason has not begun. There is no offseason for Sidney Crosby, so I'm going to make another video about that. And he also had some comments about, the Penguins, where they are as a team, and Kyle Dubas. So stay tuned for that video. It should be coming up soon as well. And if you haven't yet, let me know in the comments. what you think about Kyle Dubas's comments today, what he's planning to do with the team. I think that the Penguins are in a good spot, but they have to be very careful in free agency. So let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything Pittsburgh Penguins.